Hi everyone,
Also,
good evening. So let's start with the session. So before that, I would like to thank each one of you. I know like it is difficult on a day, especially one day before a long weekend to come for this kind of a session. So thanks a lot for all the participants to take the time to come for this session. And I would also like to express my gratitude to Zoho team for providing me such a wonderful opportunity to share my experience with each one of you. Okay, let's quickly get into the topic today for today. So what is the need for you to come for this session? So all of you know that QuickBooks is withdrawing their accounting software in India, and it is going to be there only until 30th of April, and it is high time for all the users to find a different ERP or an alternate to maintain their books of accounts, right? So now, what will be the first thought which will be coming to your mind when you are thinking about, okay, the software which I am currently using is leaving India, and what should be the next alternative, right? So, for most of you, since I understand that 90% of the people who are attending this session are the business users, and for you, the primary requirement will be like ease to use for the QuickBooks users. That is like maybe your accountant is there for on the system for the last couple of years, and they don't want to have a complete shift to a new system where they can't understand the head or tail of how the things are, right? And second thing might be like you want to migrate your data from QuickBooks to Zoho, I mean QuickBooks to any ERP, which can be done on a very quick manner, and there is no need for you to understand the nitty-gritties, or you want to do many complicated stats and other things, right? So this must be the primary criteria, and you will have your own other things, like maybe you are improving your processes, you want some checks and controls, approval mechanism, and many other things, like maybe you want to have a more sophisticated software, or you want to integrate with your banking system, etc. So if you look into 95 to 98% of the entire users who are using QuickBooks, who are looking for an alternate, their primary requirement will be the similarity with the way in which how the QuickBooks works, or rather the features, the similarity between the features, and also the ease of migrating the data from QuickBooks to the new ERP, right? So how Zoho can help you out? So you all must have done your own research on how Zoho Books works, and you know that it's like a cloud, just like QuickBooks, it is a cloud-based platform. You can do GST and e-invoicing compliant every GST requirement, starting from your e-way bill. GSTR1 to e-invoicing, everything is available and integrated with the system, and it is an integrated platform, and it is also having a banking capability, which it is connected with most of the banks in India, so that if you are using any bank and you want to do a linking between Zoho Books and your banking platform, it is readily available in the system. And over and above all these things, the key features of Zoho Books is that its similarity, or the features are more or less in line with QuickBooks. So if you are a QuickBooks user and you are moving to Zoho Books, it is extremely easy, and it will be a very smooth transition. It is not like, okay, one day, one fine morning, your accountant is feeling like left all alone, because they know where to go, how to navigate, because of two reasons. One, of course, it is the similarity in the features between QuickBooks and Zoho Books. Second one is that it is an extremely user-friendly ERP. Okay, and third one will be like affordable price. So it is not like it is very inexorbitantly having a high price or anything which you can't afford when you're moving out from one ERP to another one. It is at a very minimal cost with the maximum features. And of course, mobile accounting is also available, which is completely different from our conventional thought process of having your finance data, which is very confidential, to be having on a system or a desktop or a software to be downloaded, to be protected, etc. It is providing you a completely protected environment. At the same time, it is a cloud-based one, so that you can even access your data using mobile application. Now let's understand, when you have decided to move from QuickBooks to Zoho Books, okay, what are the key points to be noted? This is useful, or this is extremely important for the people who are planning to do a data migration by themselves, that is the users, or for any consultant who is going to provide a service of migration from QuickBooks to Zoho Books. Okay, the primary requirement is that you should have access to the QuickBooks data. That is like the person who is dedicated in your organization, or a person who is going to do on behalf of you, that is like a consultant, should have access to your QuickBooks data. Okay, this is extremely important, because many a times when you are pulling out reports, some of the nitty-gritties or some of the information might not be getting downloaded. For example, like maybe you have posted some journal entries for your trade payables or trade receivables in your journals. Okay, instead of using your sales module or purchase module, you are going and posting it in your journal module, right? In those cases, when we are downloading the reports, irrespective of what all data we are giving, sometimes the name of your vendor or customer might be missing. So whether it is done by a third party or it is done internally by you, you have to ensure that the person who is doing this should have access to your QuickBooks. Second one is that you have to take backup of QuickBooks data before you start this process. This is extremely important, especially when you are doing in-house. Many times what happens is like maybe your accountant is doing it. They will have a certain level of overconfidence because they know in and out of how QuickBooks work, and your books are like they know in and out, right? So sometimes what happens is like they might go and do something, or they do some modification at the time of migration, which can tamper the entire process. So ensure that you are taking a backup before starting the process of migration. Third one is that locking the period. Before you start the migration of data from QuickBooks to Zoho Books, you ensure that the period is logged in your QuickBooks. I am not telling it from a literally sense like go and lock it. What I try to mean is that if you're planning to do a migration from, say, April 2022 to November, you have to ensure that none of your team members are going and modifying any data from April to November once you start the migration process. Otherwise, once you complete everything, after the reconciliation is done and everything is done and dusted, then you will realize like, okay, there is some opening balance difference between Zoho and QuickBooks, and it will be really difficult for you to identify where the gap is, and you have to complete, or you have to again do the entire round of reconciliations. Now, the last one is that all the transactions should be recorded in the currency used in QuickBooks. For example, maybe you have taken the QuickBooks subscription, say 8 years before. Okay, at that time, maybe it is done by some other accountant who doesn't have even heard about an ERP, right? They might be coming from a very conventional accounting software, and they don't know how a cloud-based ERP works or how a QuickBooks works, right? They must have created all the vendors and customers in INR. And at a later point of time, maybe today you realize like, okay, I should have created this particular vendor or customer in foreign currency, so that the reinstatement should have happened at a smoother manner, right? So these kind of corrections have to be done once the migration process is completed. It should not be like, okay, I have, say, XYZ company which is maintained in INR currency in my QuickBooks, which I want to migrate into XYZ company in USD currency in Zoho. This won't work because it will create lots of reconciliation issues. Maybe there will be some, say, 1 rupee difference, 5 rupee difference, which you have to sit and correct it every now and then, which might not work smoothly for you, especially if the volume of your data is too high for you to handle. Now let us understand what are the steps to be followed when you're migrating data from QuickBooks to Zoho. So the first step should be like, you have to do the organization setting configuration in Zoho Books. So when you are opening your Zoho Books, you have to ensure that you are actually configuring the minimum requirements in Zoho Books. For example, like the name and address of your organization, it should be proper, which you want to be reflected on your invoices. That should be the same way in which you should have updated in your Zoho Books. Similarly, the base currency of your organization, for you, anyway, it will be INR, but you have to ensure that you have selected it correctly before doing it. So I'll take you through the entire thing in Zoho Books. I'm just giving you an idea about how things have to be done. Then I can take you through Zoho Books and the steps in which how you have to do this. And other things which you have to configure is like your GST number, GST treatment, what all GST, like reverse charge if it is applicable, those kind of basic things have to be done. However, if you're planning to have rounding off for your sales invoices, please don't do that configuration at the time when you are planning to do migration. So when I'm talking about migration, I'm talking about the migration of entire data from QuickBooks to Zoho Books. I'm not talking about the opening balance alone migration. Okay, so what is the difference between the entire data and the opening balance migration? So in the case of opening balance migration, you are taking a cutoff, say 31st of March 2022, that is your signed financials number, right? So you are taking a cutoff of that number and you're just putting that number as the opening balance and taking forward Zoho Books from there on. Okay, so that is opening balance migration. And wherever we are mentioning about normal migration, that means each transaction wise you are moving data from your QuickBooks to Zoho Books. Okay, so this rounding off thing which I have told you is applicable if you're doing a transition of complete data from QuickBooks to Zoho Books. Because many a times what happens is like you must have selected this rounding off option. And when you are uploading the data into the system, when you are recording the earlier transactions into the system, in QuickBooks, you might not be using this round off feature. So what happens is like if for each and every invoice, there will be a rounding off issue and you have to sit and modify it manually, which will be difficult for you. So you have to take care of these small things, which can make your migration process very smooth and fast. Okay, so if you're planning to do only the opening balance migration, in that case, there is no need for you to keep this particular rounding off thing aside. You can do it in the first stage itself because it is not going to impact anything since you are only migrating the opening balance. Now, second step will be like, so when you are visualizing the thing, first you are creating an organization, then you have to go with the basic information about your customers, vendors, items, and other things, right? So that will be the second stage, which we will be doing in Zoho Books. So what is a master data? Master data is a repository of all the data. You must be knowing it since you have this master data feature in QuickBooks as well, right? So when you are updating the master data in Zoho, there are a couple of things to be taken care of. So in case if you have inventory involved in your type of business, you have to ensure that you are updating the inventory information, all the master data, that is like all inventory related data has to be updated before you start the migration process or before you start using Zoho Books. In case of other master data, for example, like customer master data and the vendor master data, bare minimum information should be there if you can't pull out all the information about these customers and vendors. So what are these bare minimum information which we are talking about? It's as I told you, it's a very bare minimum information in the sense like name of the party, that is like name. In case of customers, it will be the name, address, and the GST treatment and the GST number of your customers. And in case of vendor, it will be name and the GST number and the GST treatment of your vendors. Okay, so why there's a difference between the vendor master, the information required in vendor master and the customer master is that in case of customer master, you are actually sending invoices to your customers. So at a later point of time, if you want to download a copy of the invoice and share with them, or you want to take it for your own record purpose, address of your customer should be on the invoice. That is as per the GST laws and other things, right? So ensure that when you are updating the master data for customers, at least bare minimum information about name, address, GST number, and GST treatment are updated. And for vendors, address is not mandatory. You can skip it if it is not required. But name, GST treatment, and the GST number should be there. Now, talking about the chart of accounts. Chart of accounts should exactly match with what is there in your QuickBooks. Okay, this is applicable for the type of people who are planning to do a transaction-wise migration into Zoho Books. If it is not necessary and you are starting afresh with Zoho Books, then you can modify your chart of accounts according to your requirements. However, if you're planning to do a transaction-wise migration from QuickBooks to Zoho Books, ensure that all your chart of accounts are created exactly like what is there in QuickBooks. Okay, the only area where you might find a difference is the bank account. Here, it has to be categorized under bank itself. In QuickBooks, if you have created it under any other category, maybe because of mistake, as I told you, maybe a couple of years back you have started and you have realized it only at a later point of time that the category is wrong, etc. In those cases alone, in case of bank, cash, and credit cards, you can go and change the category. In all other cases, you have to ensure that you are maintaining the same account type which you have used in QuickBooks. Okay, so we have completed the creation of your organization. Now you have created the basic information which is required in your books. And third one is the data migration part. Okay, this one which we are talking about is the the transaction wise migration. Before that, we will see how to update the opening balance. So in the opening balance tab, which I'll show you after the presentation, in the opening balance tab, you will be able to update the details of all your customers and vendors, and also your basic ledgers, right? All the ledger accounts balances you can update in your opening balance tab. However, when you are updating the opening balances, ensure that you are starting with general ledger accounts before you go to your vendor and customers. For example, like maybe I have some couple of customers and vendors having balances like trade payables and trade receivables. I might be having a cash account, bank account, and capital account, right? So I have to start with cash, bank, and capital account. I should update all these accounts first. Okay, then you go for your customers and vendors opening balances. So this is the way it has to be done, so that it will be very easy for you to do the transition. Okay. Another thing to be taken care of when you are updating the opening balance is that opening balance should be migrated on the last day of the previous month. There is no hard and fast rule for this, but from our experience doing n number of migrations into Zoho Books from different platforms, we can tell you this will really help you out when you are doing a reconciliation of data between your legacy system and Zoho Books. So if you're planning to do the migration on 1st of October 2022, put the date as 31st of March 2022, put all the opening balances and migrate it. Similarly, if you're planning to do a migration on, say, 1st of October, ensure that you're putting 30th of September as the migration date, and you have to put all the values so that on 1st of October, your opening balances, everything will be in place. Okay. So this is about the opening balance part. Now comes to your migration of your each and every transaction, right? So how will you do it? Migration files have to be prepared. So templates are available in each and every module in Zoho. Okay, even before all this migration from QuickBooks and other things started, it was there from the beginning to ensure that the users have all the tools and techniques to take care of their books. Okay, so there is no need for you to go for an external consultant unless the volume is too high or you have a very complicated kind of a setup where you find it very difficult to do it. If it's a very minimal one and you want to do by yourself, Zoho is actually providing you all the tools to take care of what is required to be done by you. Okay, so if this templates can be downloaded from the system, I'll show you how to download these tools also, and or you can use the tool which is provided by Zoho also. There is a tool which is developed by Zoho for downloading the data that can also be used by you. So you can download the data, extract it into the template which is required, and you can upload it into the system. However, whether you're doing it by yourself or we are using a tool, it is mandatory for you to sanitize each and every transaction before uploading it. Okay, it is not like, okay, I'm using a tool or I'm using a template so that I'm just blindly putting everything and uploading it. This can really impact the quality of your migration. So you have to ensure that the sanitization is done at each and every level to ensure that your reconciliation time will be minimum. Okay, so I'll show you how to migrate the data in the Zoho platform itself. I'm just giving you now a gist of how it is done. Okay, so once this data is migrated, so for migrating the data also, there is a sequence which you have to follow. First, you will be entering all the customer. We will start with sales part. Okay, so in the case of sales, we have already done the master data part. So you will be starting with your sales invoices. Then you will be entering any credit notes that you will be uploading. And once these two are done, you will be uploading your payments, and then your receivable part is done. So for the sales, it will go in a sequential order. Like first your invoices are going, then after the invoice, two scenarios can happen. One is like you will be raising a credit note to cancel the transaction, or might be receiving the payment against this invoice, right? So you will start with your sales invoice booking, then you will do the credit notes for canceling any of the outstanding invoices, then you will be recording your payments, and your entire receivable is closed. Okay, similarly, when you go to the purchases, if you want to have a purchase order, you can upload all the purchase order, then you will be uploading all your bills. Then again, in the bills also, there might be a sales return, there will be a purchase return, or there might be a payment for the transaction, right? So here also you will start with the bills, you will record all this purchase returns under vendor credits, then you will go for the payment to the vendor and your payables are closed. Okay. So once the vendors and the customers are over, that is like vendor payables and customer payables are over, next step will be your expenses, right? There will be some expense you are paying directly through the bank without routing it through your vendor, or maybe there are some petty cash transactions which you want to route it through your cash account. So then you will go to your expense module. In the expense module, you will be uploading all your expenses. After that, there will be a set of or handful of entries, which will be like your salary entry, depreciation, prepaid amortization, etc. Those transactions will be recorded through your journal module. Okay, so you will if you look into the entire picture, it will be like first you will complete your sales part. Sales includes your receivable part also. Then you will go to your vendor part. You will be completing your purchases and vendor payables. Then you will go to your expenses. Then you will go to your journals, and once it is done, almost 98% of your transactions will be over. Then what will be left will be like an interbank transfers, etc., which can be recorded either through the banking module, or you can use your journal for recording these transactions. Okay, so once these data are uploaded into the system, that is like importing all these migration files into the system, you are having around 95% of the things done. Okay, now comes the main part of your migration process. This is applicable, as I told you, only for the people who are doing a migration of their entire transaction, and not for the people who are doing only the opening balance migration. Okay, but reconciliation is required for all the people, that is like opening balance migration as well as for the transaction wise migration. You have to do the reconciliation, only there will be a slight difference which I'll explain you. Okay, so we will first start with transaction wise migration people. For those people, it is mandatory to do a TB reconciliation, that is a trial balance reconciliation between your QuickBooks and Zoho Books every year wise. Financial year wise, you need to do a reconciliation mandatorily. Okay, and similarly, you need to do reconciliation of your debtors and creditors balances mandatorily between the legacy system and Zoho Books. This is extremely important to ensure that the entire migration has happened properly. I can tell you, out of this entire 5 processes, this 5th one will take more time than any of the earlier steps. However, this is extremely important to ensure the correctness and the quality of your migration process. Okay, now we will discuss about the opening balance migration. The people who are going to do only the opening balance migration, for them it is mandatory to do the reconciliation of trial balance, debtors and creditors on the migration date. And when you are doing this customers and vendors reconciliation, it is mandatory to do both. It is mandatory to do a reconciliation of your foreign currency value as well as the Indian currency value if you have foreign currency vendors and customers. Okay, so we have discussed the steps to be followed. So as I told you, it will be like you will start with your organization details, then the master data, then it will be like you are updating the transactions, then you will be doing the reconciliation of data. Okay, so once this post migration, you have to do the reconciliation which we have discussed. You have to mandatorily do a TB reconciliation, vendor and customer balance reconciliation. Both the foreign currency and Indian currency is, INR is mandatory, and you have to do a bank reconciliation on a yearly basis to ensure that the transition is done properly by you. This last step of bank reconciliation is required only if you are doing a complete transition of data from Zoho Books to QuickBooks to Zoho Books, and it is not applicable for people who are going to do only the opening balance migration. Okay, let's see how Zoho Books will look like. Okay, so I hope my screen is visible for you. Zoho Books screen.
Yes.
Saminathan, could you confirm?
Yes, Lakshmi.
Yeah, okay, fine. So let's understand, I told you 5 process, right? So let's understand how this can be done in Zoho. So I presume that you at least know how to log in and log out of Zoho Books. So for new users, since the business users are there, I'll just give you a couple of things to make you understand how to access and use your Zoho Books properly. So just like your QuickBooks, it is mandatory for you to log out once the work is done, because you are dealing with your confidential information, right? Books is always a confidential thing. So we have to ensure that we are closing and opening it properly, since it is on a cloud-based platform. So ensure that you are actually going and signing it out every time once you complete your work. It should not be done like just closing here, closing the window and just leaving. It should not be done. You have to ensure that it is properly signed out. Okay, now we will see how to record the transactions and how to update the basic information about your organization before you start using it. Okay, so I told you, like, we have to update the name, address, GST number of your organization, and the basic settings before we start using Zoho Books, right? Or before migrating the data to Zoho Books. So how will you do it? So all your configuration settings, everything is lying in this gear icon of settings. Okay, so you will be going to your organization profile. You will be mentioning the nature of your industry, the full name of your organization. That is mandatory, because this is a name which is going to reflect in all the documents. So you ensure that you are mentioning it properly in the first step itself. Otherwise, maybe you will realize it after 6 months down the line or something, when the customer comes back and tell, like, there is some difference in your invoice, etc. Okay, so ensure that you are updating it at the first stage itself before you start using Zoho Books. And you have to update the logo of your organization before you start using it. Otherwise, once you record your customer invoices, etc., the invoice will get generated without the logo. So changing it again will be difficult for you. So ensure that you are uploading your logo, name of your organization, address of your organization, industry, fiscal year. I mean, it will by default it will come as April to March, unless you want to really change it. Accrual basis will come by default, but if you want to change it, yes, you can go and change it. Okay, and company ID, that is our SIN number. If you want to update it, you can do it. PAN number, if you want to update it, you can do it. It is not mandatory, and it is not going to have a big impact unless you want this to be disclosed on your customer invoices or anything. Okay, so once it is done, you can save it. So this is the basic information. Okay, after that, it is mandatory for you to mention the GST treatment of your organization. If GST is applicable, just mention yes and mention the GST number of your organization. And once you click on the get taxpayer details, automatically all this information will be filled by the system. And if reverse charge or digital services are applicable for you, you can just click on yes, so that whenever you are updating some transactions like a legal fees, automatically you will be able to see the reverse charge field available there. So once this is done, you will be going to the preferences, and you have to select only the one. This is not mandatory. Okay, the one which I'm going to tell you now, it is not mandatory or like a showstopper for you to start using Zoho Books. However, it is highly recommended to do this before you start your transition or a migration process. Okay, so here you can select which all module are applicable for you. For your organization, if sales order, estimates, timesheets are not applicable, it is not really required for you to have all these things displayed over here. Okay, how will you remove it? You can go to your settings, go to preferences, uncheck the box next to that particular one and save it, so that in the main window or in the display window, it will be here. It won't be reflecting because we have told the system that, okay, this is not applicable for my organization. Okay, so these are the basic things, and I told you about the rounding off, right? So here you can see the round off total to nearest whole number for sales transaction. So check this box only if you have gone live or you are going with your opening balance migration alone. Otherwise, please don't select this one, because we have seen in many situations, like from the legacy system, when you're moving to Zoho Books, you are not following this rounding off in the legacy system. And as a result, you will have hell a lot of trouble when you are trying to reconcile your sales and receivables. So please ensure that you are checking this once the migration is over, or once your opening balance updating, everything is over, so that you won't have any trouble while doing a reconciliation. Okay, the other things are like, you can, all these are like check boxes. If you really want this, you can do it. Especially if you're a business user, you will be knowing what kind of things you are doing in the organization. However, if you are a consultant, just send these details to your customer or client and ask them to confirm it before you do these configurations. Okay, now once this is done, we will be doing the master data, right? Before we go to the opening balances, we will do the master data. Master data consists of three things. One is the item master. So item master can be used either by the service industry people as well as by your inventory people. Okay, I'll tell you how it will work for both of you. Okay, I don't know whether the Zoho team, that is like Kartika, Swaminathan and all, will agree with me, but being a user of Zoho Books for the last 8 years, I could say how it can work for the service industry also, because we are also using Zoho Books for our own organization. Okay, so we will see first for inventory, that is like people who are having inventory. For them, you will be clicking on the items, you will be mentioning the goods. Okay, you will be mentioning the sale price, you will be selecting the account. If you have multiple income account, you need to select the one which you are going to use for it, and the cost price also you need to give if we are going to purchase it. And if it is an inventory related one, you will be having another tab over here. One second, I'll just enable and show you. Sorry, in my this thing it is not there. So normally you will have another table down where you have to mention the inventory, the stock account which you want to configure for this particular one. And if GST is there, GST can also be given here. Since this organization is not GST compliant, that is why you are not able to see the GST information. This is about the goods part. Service industry people, they have to just select the services, and you won't be enabling the Zoho inventory product, and as a result, for you it will be like by default you will be giving the sale price, and purchase information won't be there, not required for you also, so that you can create like we can give either 1 rupee or the actual rate, depending upon your requirement. This amount can be you can override this amount when you are raising an invoice if it is required. Okay, this is a way in which you will be creating an item master. If you have n number of item master, so what is the requirement of item master? For inventory related people, you know that whenever you are raising an invoice, you will be selecting the respective product and do it. Item master will really help you to do that. For the service industry people, if you have a common service, for example, like, okay, you are providing a QuickBooks to Zoho Books migration service to multiple clients, right? It might be like a single standard product, that is like service, that is QuickBooks migration, and it will be provided to different customers at different rates. So instead of typing it every time and selecting the SAC code applicable for it, you can create an item master, and every time when you're raising an invoice, you can just attach this one, so that automatically all the information like the income account, your SAC code, everything will be captured. And even if the rates are standard for your service, then that can also be mentioned, so that it will reduce the work of person who's actually raising the invoice. Okay, now we will talk about how to create or upload this information into the system. So there are different ways in which you can do it, but I'm telling you the easiest way to do it, so that it can really make your life easier. Okay, easiest way to do this is like, just like how I showed you, create one item by your own. Okay, I have created one item here, so when I'm looking into it, I know like what data is going into which particular field here, right? So once this is done, okay, you go to the item tab in Zoho on the left hand side. Next to new, you can see three dots. Once you click on that, you can see an option called export items. Okay, so you export the transaction which you have actually created in the system. Okay, so here you can see in which column what has to be filled. Use the same file. You can remove this columns which are showing this ID. Okay, wherever this ID is coming, capital I, capital ID, that columns alone you can just simply delete it. Fill the rest of the transactions into the system. you can see what is filled here. So if you want, you can modify it. Okay, income account, if you want to change it, you can change it. All other information you can just copy paste from the earlier one because it's already been created. So you know, like, okay, what has to be filled in which particular sorry, which particular column. So once it is done, you can save it and you can import it in the same place. So I'm just going to the same place, that is items. Next to new, you can see 3 dots. Click on import items. Earlier we have done export, right? Now I am importing it. Click on choose file. Okay, here you can see the item CSV file which I have saved. Select it. And if it is a duplicate one, you can ask the system to skip it. Character encoding and file delimiter, you can leave it as it is. Go to the next one. If any of the fields are not filled, you can fill using the data available there. So basically what it is doing is like the left hand side tab is actually telling you what is the field in Zoho Books, and right hand side tab tells you that what is the corresponding field in the file which you have prepared. That is the Excel file or CSV file which we have prepared. Okay, so once it is done, you can click on import and it will show you how many records are ready to import. That is like how many records are processed without any error and how many records are having an error. Okay, here it says that 3 records are processed without error. It is ready to create the item and 1 record is showing an error. So if you click on the error, it will tell you why. Okay, it says that in I'll open that file so it will be easier for you to understand. It says that row number 2, that is this particular one, this bookkeeping service is already existing because we have already created it, right? So I have asked the system to skip if it is already existing. That is why system has skipped this particular one and the rest of the things are available for importing. Okay, and when you are importing it, it is necessary for you to check the unmapped fields. Unmapped fields tells that, okay, in your Excel sheet, there are a couple of other columns also available. Do you want to capture this information somewhere or not? For example, here it says that account code column is not captured. So we can check that this account code column is already blank. So there is no need for system to actually select it, so that you can just ignore it. Okay, now I'm importing it by clicking it. Okay, you can see that all my items are imported into the system. So this is the same process you will be following in all the modules. This is available not only in items, it is available across the modules like sales, purchases, customer master data, per payment, customer invoice payments, customer sales invoices, vendor payments, vendor bills. Everywhere this particular feature is available, and this is the easiest way to do it. Here also I can give you tips. Okay, like when you are importing it, if you are very comfortable importing the data, there is no need for you to manually enter it. Though this is the fastest way to do. From our experience, what we have learned is this is the easiest way to do it. If you are confident enough that you can prepare it by yourself, then same place you go to the items. Next to new, you can see 3 dots. You can see an option called import items. Okay, where we went for importing the items, right? There you can see a blue color tab called sample file. This one you can download it. It will be basically the template, that is the format, and it will be having its own demonstration, illustration data also, and you can remove this and fill it by yourself. But from our experience, our recommendation is like, if possible, you create one document by yourself, download it, use the same data and upload the transaction, so that the chances of you having errors will be minimal. Okay, second thing is like when you are downloading it, in most of the modules you can find 2 options like Excel file and CSV file. To the extent possible, use the CSV file for uploading into the system. You can prepare it as an Excel, convert it into CSV and upload it. From our personal experience, we learned that CSV throws the minimum number of errors compared to Excel. Okay, and it is very easy for you to identify the mistake in CSV compared to Excel. So if possible, always prepare it in Excel, convert it into CSV before uploading it, so that the number of errors or the way in which it will throw up errors will be very minimal. Okay, this is the way you will be preparing the item master. Now we will go to the customers. Same process will be followed here also. You will be creating a customer manually. Here, as I told you, you will need to give the customer name, address, if it is available. Okay, and it is mandatory to give a GST treatment. Okay, so I'll just enable the GST configuration here since it is not allowing me to. Okay, so I'm just filling the information. So here you will have all the list of things like registered, unregistered, overseas, etc. So you have to select the respective one which is applicable for your customer. If it is a registered one, it is mandatory for you to give the GST details here. And if it is an overseas one, it won't ask you, and unregistered also, it won't ask you. Okay, so GST treatment, GST number, name and address of your customer is extremely important. That it won't allow you to proceed without giving this information. So please fill this information before you start migration process. Sorry. Okay, here also similar way, you will be creating a customer. Here next to the new, you can see an option called exporting the customers. Export it, make the necessary corrections or update the file using the data for your subsequent customers. Then come back here, click on import and import the customers. So your customers will be done. Then you will be going to your purchases. Similarly for vendor, you will be doing it. In vendor, you will be giving the vendor name. Address, if you want, you can give. GST treatment is again very important. That is like a mandatory field. You will be giving the TDS section if TDS is applicable. This is extremely important when you are doing a transaction level migration, because if TDS is not enabled, the TDS line of transaction won't get updated properly when you are uploading the data. So ensure that for which all vendors TDS is applicable, you are enabling this TDS before uploading all the purchase details, that is a bill details. Okay. And one more thing I wanted to tell you, in Zoho Books, the categorization of CGST, SGST, IGST is decided by the system depending upon the place of supply given by you, source of supply given by you. Okay, so in case if your organization is registered in, say, Chennai, and your customer is also registered in Chennai, system will automatically take CGST, SGST categorization, right? But sometimes what happens is, like when you are looking into the QuickBooks data, this is applicable more for consultants than the business users. So what we see is, like, sometimes they must have wrongly selected IGST for this particular transaction. Okay, and when you try to record a transaction putting IGST, system won't accept it, because for system to identify whether IGST, CGST is applicable depends upon what is the source of supply. So the only way in which you can accommodate that is, because this is an inbuilt feature in the system to ensure that you are properly compliant under GST. It is not a flaw or anything. This is an inbuilt feature in Zoho to ensure that at no point your CGST, IGST categorization is going wrong. Okay, but sometimes when your customer has already recorded it wrongly in the system, you have to accommodate it into this thing, into your Zoho Books when you're migrating, right? In those cases, just change the source of supply at the transaction level so that you can record this transaction, and it will be going wrong only for that particular transaction and not for any other records. Okay. So in vendor, we were discussing about the TD. Sorry, I have deviated from the vendor master. Okay, so in the vendor master, you have to select the TDS applicability also if it is applicable. Okay, so here address is not mandatory. If you have, you can update the vendor master with the address. Otherwise, you can just update the name, address, TDS, and the GST treatment. Okay, here also you will be going to the 3 dots. You will be exporting it. Then you will be using the same file for updating the data and importing it. Here in all the modules, you can see that the sample files or the templates are available if you want to do it by yourself. However, the way which I told you is the easiest way to upload the data. So once the vendor master is also updated, you will be updating your chart of accounts. So chart of accounts can be done in 2 ways. Either you can manually enter it by clicking on it, or you can export the chart of accounts, or you can import the chart of accounts using the template. So in chart of accounts, I would recommend you to use the import option itself, because it's not as complicated as what we are seeing for the other one. It is very straightforward. So you can use the import feature, import file itself for updating the data and uploading it. For all other places, you can use the export feature first for downloading the data which are already recorded, then you update it, and then you import it back into the system. So we have seen the master data, right? Now we will see the opening balances. So how will you record the opening balances? There are two ways in which you can record the opening balance. One, while recording this chart of accounts, that is like uploading the chart of accounts, you can give the opening balance of your normal ledgers, not the customers and vendors, but you can give the normal ledger. So here in the template itself, you can see that when you're giving the account name, it is possible for you to give the opening balance and the debit and credit. This is one way of doing it. Okay, another way of doing this is like there is an opening balance tab available in Zoho. That is like if you go to the settings, after completing your organization profile, you can see that there is a tab called opening balances. Here you can go and you can import the opening balances. So click on here, download the sample file. Okay, here don't use this import export thing. You can do it in the import file itself. Okay, here you will be giving the date, you will be mentioning the account, debit or credit, and the currency of your transaction, and you will be mentioning the vendor or customer name if it is pertaining to vendor balances or customer balances. That is like in account receivable, if you have three parties, you need to create 3 lines here. For everything, you will be mentioning accounts receivable as account name, and the name of the party will be mentioned in the contact name. Okay, so I'll show you how you can import your opening balances. So as I told you, if you are doing it manually in the opening balance tab, like here, you can go and manually enter the opening balances. Like click here, you can mention the amounts and save it. Okay, if you're planning to do it like this, if the number of ledgers are very less and you want to do it in this fashion, ensure that you are starting with normal ledgers, that is like equity, liability, bank, income, expense, if you're planning to do it, assets, before you start with your receivables and payables. So in nutshell, receivables and payables updation should be the last leg of your opening balance migration and not should be the first one. If you're uploading it, doesn't matter because it is coming in the same import file, so you can do it in one go. But if you are planning to do it manually, ensure that you are completing all these things before going to your receivables and payables. Okay, so I'll just show you how you can import an opening balance. Okay, I have a file which has already been prepared. If you want to see, I can just show you. Okay, this is a sample file. So the date, as I told you, it should be the last day of the previous month. If you're planning to do an opening balance migration, it should be the last day of the previous month. You have to give the ledger account name. This name should exactly tie up with your chart of accounts. If you're importing it, ensure that you are taking the ledger name from the chart of accounts. Maybe even if there is a space in between, it can be created as duplicate ones. So ensure that you are downloading the chart of accounts and updating this information in this particular file. Okay, and the debits and credits, you will be giving the currency you have to give. This currency should be the correct one. It should not be like you're planning to maintain a account in say USD, for example, like bank account in USD. You have to ensure that you are mentioning this account in USD, and you will be giving the USD amount here and the exchange rate applicable for the USD. Okay, so if it is an INR, you don't have any problem. You will be mentioning the INR value, the exchange rate, and straight away you can upload it. But if you are planning to maintain any account in USD, ensure that you are mentioning the currency as USD or Euro, whatever it is. You will be mentioning the foreign currency value, that is a Euro equivalent or USD equivalent, and you will be mentioning the exchange rate applicable for it. It should not be like, okay, I have USD, say 1000 USD as the receivable from a party. I'll straight away go here, put USD 1001. No, that will tamper the entire thing, because at a later point of time, when you are giving an exchange rate for a reinstatement, it will go on a toss, because at that time system will take 1000 into that particular exchange rate, and the differential will be posted as gain or loss. So you have to ensure that you are giving the US. If you are giving any other currency here, the currency equivalent should be mentioned over here. The exchange rate should be mentioned here, so that you won't have any trouble at a later point of time. Okay, so this is the file which I'm going to upload. Okay, so I'll show you once again where I'm going and uploading it. I have gone to the opening balances. In the opening balance, there's a green tab called import opening balances. I'm just clicking on this. Okay, I'm selecting it. Here the date should be, you should take care of this date part. Whatever format you have given here, you have to select it from the drop down option. Almost all the date formats are available here. Okay, and you have to click on next. So it is showing me that everything is ready for importing. Once I import it, click on import, you can see that it is showing me the correct balances as the opening balance. Okay, however, sometimes what happens is like when you are updating it, especially when you're doing in bits and pieces, sometimes your trial balance won't match, right? I'll show you how it will look like. Okay, when your trial balance, the opening trial balance which you have updated into the system is not matching, it will show you like this. Okay, total debits and credits are different, not matching. And once you're clicking it, automatically system will be parking it in your opening balance adjustment account. So once you complete your opening balance migration, maybe it is for 1 year or maybe before you start the transaction wise migration, ensure that once you have completed your opening balance updation, go and take a trial balance and check whether any balance is lying in your opening balance adjustment account. If some balance is lying in that account, it is an indication that the opening balance TB which you have updated into the system is not tallying. Okay, so this has to be fixed at the first step itself. Otherwise, maybe 6 months down the line, if you want to go and fix it at the time, especially at the time of audit, it will be a cumbersome job for you and it will waste so many hours of you to get it fixed. So ensure that once you update your opening balance, you are taking a trial balance from the system and validate this before you proceed. Okay, since we talked about the opening balance TB, I'll tell you how to take it before we proceed. Okay, so how will you take an opening balance TB? Very simple process. Go to the reports, just like in QuickBooks. Here, everything is in reports. Okay, so either you can navigate and find it out, or you can search here. Okay, so once you click, just like same feature which you have in QuickBooks, nothing different from what you're doing. However, if you want to take it with an opening balance, that particular column, what you need to do is like click on this customized report. I'm selecting this here. Okay, select the date range so that it will show you this opening balance, debit, credit, closing balance, and run the report. Okay, so that you can see the opening balances and you can check whether your opening balance adjustment account is showing any balance or not. Why I showed you this report is that you all know how to take the trial balance, right? However, if you're not selecting this date range, it won't allow you to select opening balance, debit, credit, and closing balance. So ensure that you are selecting the date range before you try to take this report. Otherwise, it will give you only the net balance. I'll show you as on date. If I take, it will show you only the debits and credits. So it will be difficult for you to understand whether this opening trial balance is matching or not. So always go to the trial balance, select your date range, take opening balance, debit, credit, and closing balance. Run the report so that you can check whether the opening balance is matching. At the same time, your closing TB is also matching. Okay, so if this is there, you have to address it first before you proceed further. Because opening balance have to match before you do anything further, right? Yeah, so we have seen how to update the opening balances. Similarly, you can do it for your vendors and customers as well. Okay, in case if there is only one customer or vendor for whom you want to do it, there also you can import it, or you can go to the respective vendor's account and add this particular one also. So I'll show you for one customer how it will look like. I have created everything. I have updated all the information. Then I found like, okay, I have missed to include opening balance of a particular customer, right? So in that case, there is no need for you to upload or import it again because it's only for one customer. That can be done here also. So next to the receivables, you can see an option called view opening balance. Click on that, mention that particular amount and update it. Okay, in this fashion also, you can actually do it. Okay. So you can see that the opening balance is updated, and that is why it is showing an increase in the differences, right? I'll show it in this particular opening balance tab also. Here also you can see that the accounts receivable, I have added this party and this balance is updated. So in both the ways you can do it. If it is only 1 or 2 customers, you can do it directly in the master data tab. If it is for multiple customers, you can do it in this import option also available in opening balance. So we have seen how to record the opening balance. We have seen how to create the master data, right? Now we have to see how to record a transaction, right? Just like how we have done the master data, here also you will be following the same process. You will be clicking on new. You will be selecting the customer so that all the information about your customer, which is updated in your master data, will reflect over here, just like how it is in QuickBooks. Okay, and I'm showing you how this item will really help me out, even if it is for a service industry. Okay, so you can see the items which we have updated is reflecting over here. I'm selecting this particular one, and you can see that all the details, the rate, everything is coming up. If I have given the SAC rate, that should have also come up. Okay, and I can also see that this the income account which I have mapped in the item master is reflecting over here. So there is no need for me to always worry like, okay, what should be the SAC code, whether I have updated the SAC code or HSN code, or whether I have selected the correct income account. It will be taken care of by the system if you are updating your item master. Okay, so now I have created. Okay, so I have created one invoice now. Now, once I have done it, just like how we have seen earlier, you can go here, import the invoices. Okay, you can, export the invoice, update it, and you can fill that file. Then you can go here and import the new file. Okay, so here you can see that Excel and CSV options are available. If you want to download it, you can download it and fill it by yourself also. As I told you, CSV files are easier to manage when you are importing it. So to the extent possible, use CSV. If you are finding it very difficult to handle CSV, then you can use the Excel file. Okay, so once all these information are updated, that is like your sales, purchases, invoices, everything, then we need to do the reconciliation. Okay, before we proceed, I'll tell you a couple of other things as well. Like there are two options in which you can record the expenses in Zoho. One is the expense module and one is the bill module. Okay, so if you ask me what is the difference between bill module and expense module, there are three points to be checked before you decide whether you want to use it for expenses or bills. Okay, so what are these three criteria? First one is that if TDS is going to be deducted on this particular vendor, ensure that you are using the bill module for recording the transaction. Okay, and second one is that if it is if you have an underlying agreement between the party and yourself, for example, like maybe housekeeping one, you know that they are going to send you invoices throughout the year, or maybe once in a quarter or once in a year, right? So in those cases, yes, if you want to keep a track of your expenses, yes, it has to be done through your bill module. Third one is that in case if you know from the day one that you have to send an account statement during the year end, that is a third party confirmation or for the reconciliation, you have to ensure that you are using the bill module for recording a transaction. So what is the difference between recording a transaction in bill module and expense module? In case of bill module, when you are recording a transaction, the entry posted will be expenses will be debited and your vendor account will be credited. Okay, and in case of expenses, the entry posted will be expense will be debited and bank or cash or your employee advance, whatever it is getting credited. So in the expense module, there is no mechanism or there is no place where you are actually capturing the details of your vendor to track the vendor, that particular vendor's transactions. In case of bill module, it is possible for you to keep a track of all the transaction you have with this particular vendor. So depending upon these three criteria, that is like TDS, underlying agreement, and the third one is account statement, you can decide whether you want to record a transaction in expense module or bill module. This is for the business users because they might be using it for the first time. For a consultants, anyway, you will be knowing what will be going to your bill module and what will be going to your expense module. So for the business users, ensure that you are using the correct module here. There is nothing wrong like, okay, if I use expense module for recording an expense without bill module, entire thing will go wrong. Nothing like that. But for ease of your way of looking at things or ease of getting data from the system, this is the way it has to be done. Okay, and for bill module, it is mandatory that you have to maintain vendor master data. For expenses, there is no need because you are not capturing the details of vendor anywhere. Okay, now coming to the accountant module. So we have completed the items, we have completed sales, we have completed purchases. So invoices, vendor credits, that is the purchase return will be entered in vendor credits. You will be recording all your vendor payments here. Payments can be in any combination like uh, partial payment, full payment, all payments can be recorded here. Consolidated payment for multiple invoices, everything can be recorded here. Similarly, in sales also you have a payment tab here, payment receipt. There also all combination like receiving in installments, consolidated payment for multiple invoices, partial payment, partial advances, everything can be recorded. Okay, now coming to the e-way bills and GST are purely related to GST related areas. So since everyone won't be having this particular one, I'm just skipping it for the time being. So now we will go to the accountant tab. And this GST filings are more important once the migration is done and you are going live. So we are not focusing on it for the time being. Sorry. So let's see about what we can do it in manual journals. Okay, just like any other ERP, just like QuickBooks, you have manual journals here also. The sorry. So I'll show it in. It's very simple to record the transaction. Like you will be giving a narration here. From our experience, our recommendation is that you always put this in description as well, so that when you're doing a ledger review, etc., it will be really handy for you. Okay, and you can select the transaction according to your requirement. Save and publish. Okay, this is it is as easy as this. And here it is possible for you to clone and record the transaction. If you want to repeat it again and again, you can use this clone feature. This clone feature is available in all the modules. If you are importing it, it might not be relevant. That is why I didn't cover it so much. But in journals, it really helps you, especially when you are posting the last set of entries in your migration process. There will be always a handful of entries, right? Which will be like a repetitive one, very unique for your organization. Those kind of transactions can be recorded using this clone option. And there is another option which is available called as a reverse entry. Create a reverse entry. For example, if you're doing migration for multiple financial years, and there will be a handful of transactions which are recorded on 31st of a particular financial year and reversed on 1st of next financial year, right? So those kind of transactions can be recorded in journals, and you can click on this create reverse entry. You need to just change the date and the narration to be modified if you want, and just click on save and publish so that it will save a lot of time for you. Okay. Next two things are extremely important for you when you are doing a migration. One is the currency adjustment. So in QuickBooks, many organizations, what we have observed is that they will be posting this exchange fluctuation entry through journal entry instead of posting it through the base currency adjustments. That is the currency adjustment tab. Okay, it varies from organization to organization. Some organizations are very systematically following it and they won't have any trouble. For other people, it's not a trouble, but if you are a consultant and doing it for the users, okay, for a business which is following this kind of a thing, then you will have a bit of a difficulty, because these transactions have to be recorded through currency adjustment. You can do it through your journal entry, but this won't give a correct picture to your customer going forward. That is like maybe at a later point of time, if they want to look back into their books, what was happened in that particular year, what was the balance in that particular account at that point of time, they will have a challenge. So we have to think from their angle when you are doing a migration. So since most of us are accountants, we know like how to put a debit and credit and match a value which will match with your TV, right? But our real skill depends upon to what extent you are putting it in such a fashion that it will be really helpful and it will provide a meaningful insight to the customer when they are looking at the migrated data, correct? So for doing that, ensure that all the currency adjustments are done through currency adjustment. This is basically the module for reinstating your foreign currency transaction. So how will you do it? You will click on make an adjustment. You will mention which currency you want to reinstate. You will mention the date on which you want to reinstate this value and the rate at which you want to reinstate it. So the system will automatically reinstate this value, and necessary effect will be given to the respective foreign currency transactions in your books. So the good part of this is that before posting the entry, it will show you what is the exchange fluctuation sorry, coming out of this particular transaction, so that you can validate it, and if it is correct only, you have to post it. Okay, and the other good feature in Zoho is that it will show you the exchange reinstatement, that exchange fluctuation value for debtors separately and creditors separately. So if you feel that, okay, the client has reinstated only the vendors and didn't do it for the customers, you can select it accordingly and pass it, so that there won't be any reconciliation issue for you, because it will exactly match with what is there in their QuickBooks. Okay, next one is a transaction locking. So once you have completed your transition, whether it is done by the business user in-house or it is done by a consultant, it is extremely important to ensure that you are locking the system before proceeding further. Why I'm telling this is like, many a times when a particular person is posting an entry, they will simply especially with organizations have multiple finance people working in finance department, without a second thought, many a times they will go and change something in the earlier data, and that will really hamper the migration process. Okay, maybe you have reconciled everything and given to them, and without thinking much, especially people who are very new to the organization, they won't think about the impact of what they are doing. The spur of a moment, they will think like, okay, this is a wrong entry, and go and modify it, right? So in order to avoid those kind of confusions and inefficiencies, ensure that once the migration is over, you are locking the period so that no one will go and change it even by mistake. Okay, and similar thing we have discussed when we were talking about the first step to be done when you are migrating data from QuickBooks to Zoho Books, right? There also locking the period is extremely important, because otherwise what happens, you must have completed the entire transition, everything is done, every migration is done, every reconciliation is done, and when you're doing the last leg of reconciliation before handing over to the customer, you will realize like some of the balances are not matching. We have faced it earlier also. That is why we tell the customers now, like, please lock the period before giving to us. You can't keep on going and changing every now and then, right? So ensure that even if you're doing it in-house or done by a consultant, ensure that the period is locked and no one is going to post any entry before you complete the migration process. Okay, so once this is done, you will be doing a reconciliation. So reconciliation can be done for trial balance. Now, then bank reconciliation has to be done, and the customer and the vendor balances also has to be reconciled. So trial balance, I have shown you how to take the opening balance, debit, credit, and closing balance for doing the reconciliation. Next one is the customer and vendor. You can use the customer balance summary report in receivables and the vendor balance summary report in payables for doing the reconciliation. And similar report is available in QuickBooks. You all will be well aware of it, called creditors report and debtors report, I believe that is the name. It is available in, it's a standard one, and you can do a reconciliation to ensure that the values are matching. And you have to ensure that your foreign currency values are also reconciled before proceeding further, because matching INR might not be very difficult, but you have to ensure that your foreign currency value is also matching, to ensure that you or the client for whom you are doing it is going to face any issue at a later point of time, because there is a mismatch in the foreign currency value. Now we will see how to do a bank reconciliation. So I will show it in my books instead of showing it in this particular one. I hope my screen is visible for you. Saminathan, could you just confirm whether this particular books is visible?
Yes, Lakshmi.
Okay, so this is having transactions, so it will be easier for me to explain to you. That is why I have shifted to another set of books now. Okay, so this is the banking module of Zoho. So how will you go there? You will be clicking on your dashboard. You will be going to the banking module. There, all your bank's cash, credit cards, and your undeposited fund accounts will be visible over there. You select the one which you want to reconcile. Okay, and when if you are doing a what do you say, migration from QuickBooks to Zoho Books, okay, it is not practically possible for you many a times to do a reconciliation or a matching for a monthly basis. Okay, in that case, what you need to do is like financially advise, do a reconciliation to ensure that the values are exactly matching before you hand over to your customer. So how will you do it? You will be uploading all the data. You won't be importing the bank statement at this stage, because you are doing the migration for a bigger volume. So if you are doing for say 500 600 transactions, well, you can do it, but what I'm talking about is around 25 to 35,000 line item transactions, which you might be migrating from QuickBooks to Zoho Books. Okay, in those cases, what you will be doing is you will be clicking on this gear icon next to your import statement. You will click on reconcile account. It's very similar to what you're doing in QuickBooks. Okay, you will be clicking on initiate reconciliation. You will be giving the entire year. That is like, okay, and you will be giving the closing balance of that financial year here. And you will do a start reconciliation. And once you click, if it is properly done, the difference will be 0. And then you will click on reconcile and your bank reconciliation is done. So this has to be done only once your TB reconciliation is completed and all the differences are removed. Okay, you should not start bank reconciliation as the first step of your reconciliation. This is the last step. This has to be done once your TB reconciliation, debtors, creditors are completed. Okay, otherwise what happens is, like, even if you want to change any of these transactions, you have to go and first remove the bank reconciliation, then do it. Okay, so you ensure that this is the last leg of transaction or which you are going to reconcile before handing over to your customer, so that you can ensure that the banks are reconciled, debtor balances are reconciled, creditor balances are reconciled, and also the TB is reconciled. This is applicable for the business users also. If you are doing in-house, ensure that this is the last leg of thing which you are going to do before you complete your reconciliation process. So once this is done, your books are good to go and you can go live. So once you have decided to go live and you want to have this rounding off done, you can go to the preferences at that point of time and you can enable this round off total and save it. Okay, so I think I have covered pretty much every area of how to do a migration from QuickBooks to Zoho Books. So in case if you have any questions, I can answer it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lakshmi. That was indeed an exhaustive, explanation on how you can migrate your data into Zoho Books. So you have shared quite a number of hacks and tips on how to migrate them perfectly. So just giving a recap to the attendees, you can back up the data from QuickBooks. You can do that manually via, QuickBooks, or you can reach out to Zoho and we can help you with the exporting of data from QuickBooks. We also have partners like Lakshmi who can help you with this process. And then further, we can help you with the import also. Zoho, along with our partners, we can help you with the import also. So we have two methods there. One is you can just go ahead with the entering balance of this fiscal year and bring in the transactions of this fiscal year and start using Zoho Books. Or if you want to have the entire historical data to be migrated, that can also be done. And finally, how do you reconcile it? That has also been shown by Lakshmi. So that's the smoothest way of doing the migrations here. Lakshmi has also explained you how to use our sample data. You have to just ensure that the data which is exported from QuickBooks is also in the format of Zoho Books. It should be pretty similar, but the names and fields might be slightly different. So that has to be made sure that they are all in sync, and that file has to be imported into Zoho Books. So now we are open for questions. So I think we have spent a lot of time on explaining the whole process, and we have also shown it online. So I'm sure you have confidence on how to migrate it. So either you can migrate it yourself, because we wanted to show that migration can be done by the customers themselves, and of course we are also there to help. So you can also contact us for the migration. So we'll be here for another 10 minutes. So you can post your questions. So we have a questions tab on the right hand side of this backstage. So you can post your questions there and we'll be able to answer you. Any questions on the migration, we'll even project it and we can answer it live here. If anyone has any question on migration, you can even ask mic access. We can enable that for you. All other product questions, please keep it on the questions tab. Question asked previously, can't we migrate the details of vendors and customers from QB to Zoho? Yes, of course you can. So you have to export the vendors and customers from QB and you can import them here. as we had mentioned before, you have to just make sure that the file, the vendors and the customers file which you are importing it in Zoho Books should be compatible with a Zoho Books format. So it should be in the CSV or the XLS file, and also while importing it, you have to map the right fields. So Lakshmi would have already showed you how to do that. So you have to just follow that and import it here. So that is another question. If I am migrating 5 years data from QB to Zoho Books, would I have to repeat the whole process 5 times? No. So see, if you are migrating 5 years data, so you would be, bringing in the trial balance of the date which is before 5 years. Okay. So that has to be entered as opening balance just one time in Zoho Books, and then the 5 years of data has to be imported into Zoho Books. You wouldn't have to close the balance every year, open it here again. That is not needed. Opening balance will be entered just once in Zoho Books. If you have any product related questions as well, you can post it in the questions tab. Everything on this is fine, but there is any demo on migration tool as doing data migration in one shot, or we need to upload it one by one in the heads. Okay, so if you contact us, we will help you in exporting the data from QuickBooks. Okay, so we have an export tool with which you can export the data completely from QuickBooks. So that you can consider something like, one shot backing up the data. Importing of the data, we have to follow the steps as mentioned by Lakshmi. So you have to enter the opening balance, you have to upload the masters, and you have to import the transactions module wise one by one. Like you have to start with your purchases and then the sales, and then you have to, if there are any manual journals, you have to bring them. So yes, import of the data has to be done one by one, module wise. I don't think there is any tool available to totally, migrate the data in one shot into Zoho Books as of now.
Whether this question on TDS payable has already been answered?
Yes, we have replied it on that.
I think, Triveni, could you just check whether this TDS payable entry you have recorded it properly in this respective branch? It sometimes happens when you record the vendor bill in one branch and the payment in another branch. This happens. So please check whether both are recorded in the same branch. Then you won't have this problem. That is why in admin account you are seeing it is closed, and in respective branch you are seeing it as open. Please check that one.
Okay, so I think we will wrap this up. Thank you so much, Lakshmi, for coming in here and doing this session for us. Thank you, audience, for joining.
Thanks, Kartika.
So much, everyone, and thank you, Lakshmi, for being a gracious host and taking the session forward.